Story 7, Car Trouble. Who did this? I asked myself, unable to believe what was in front of me. I had arrived at my psychology office at 10 this morning as usual. Then I walked across the road to the local coffee shop, enjoyed a latte, and half an hour later headed back to the office. That's when I saw my slashed tyres. I was shocked. The fact that all 4 tyres had been cut instead of just one indicated that this wasn't a mere prank by some kids in the neighbourhood. It was obviously done by someone who had issues with me. Immediately, I narrowed it down to 4 possibilities: my red zone patients, those I had not yet been able to help. I rushed into my office, dug up their files, and asked my secretary, Renata, to try and schedule all of them for today. Then I had her phone the auto club about my car. I decided I would speak to each of the patients and attempt to figure out the culprit. However, I knew that I couldn't just ask them about the incident. Some might react badly. I would have to watch for subtle clues. I only had to wait a few moments before Renata buzzed to let me know that Mrs. Roberts had arrived. The door to my office opened, and in she trotted. She was blonde and carried more weight than her small frame seemed suited for. We had been trying to uncover the psychological reasons for her compulsive overeating, but so far we had had no luck. "Hello, Mrs. Roberts, how's everything going?" "Not very well," she said, jabbing a chubby finger at me. "Your suggestions don't seem to work at all." "I see. You blame me." "You know what I've lost so far? 3 pounds. I still can't bend down to kiss my kids. How am I supposed to go to that wedding next week looking like this?" "Mrs. Roberts, instead of being upset, you should congratulate yourself on your success." She grimaced. "What success? It's just 3 pounds. "Yes, that's true, but many of my patients would be thrilled that they lost anything at all. Most of them are gaining week by week." She paused, seeming to consider this. Suddenly she sat up a little straighter in her chair, her pale face gaining a bit of colour. She seemed a bit more optimistic, and we continued to talk about her weight issue until her hour was up. Then I asked Renata to send in the next patient. Randy Peters stumbled in and cautiously approached the chair in front of my desk. "What's wrong, Mr. Peters?" "Lost my contacts, Doc. Can't find them anywhere." He fumbled for the chair and sat down. "Be careful, Mr. Peters. That's dangerous." "Yes, I know. I'm taking a taxi home." "Good," I nodded. "How is everything else going?" "Not very well. You mentioned last week that you were having more frequent dreams?" He nodded. "Yesterday was the worst. The man in the mask chased me down the street, but I finally confronted him and ripped his mask off." "Was the face familiar?" "Now that you mention it, he may have looked a bit like you, Doc." "Like me? What do you think that signifies?" He shrugged. "I don't know, but it upset me a great deal to see you staring at me." He accidentally knocked over my pen holder. "Sorry, Doc." He gathered the pens and placed them back into the holder. Suddenly he brightened. "I got it, Doc. You remind me of my father, and I never got along with him. That's why I must have been upset when I saw you in the dream. We made some progress discussing his father until it was time for my next patient." Mr. Carlson entered my office and grimaced as he eyed the chair. "Is it okay if I stand, Doctor?" "Certainly." Mr. Carlson had a phobia of germs that seemed to be worsening. "How are things?" "Terrible. Today I couldn't even touch my computer at work." "Did you attempt the affirmations we practiced?" "No use. In fact, I was so agitated I wanted to lash out at someone." His gaze bore into me. "Anything unusual happen last week?" "Well, I got trapped in my garage. It was filthy and I was stuck for hours." "That might be significant, Mr. Carlson." We explored this idea, and I finally convinced him to sit. When our session ended, I had Renata send in my last red zone patient. Mr. Leamington sauntered in, puffing on a cigarette, despite his goal to quit. "We agreed no smoking in here, Mr. Leamington." "I apologize," he said, stubbing it out. "I couldn't help myself." "What goes through your mind before you light up?" "Nothing, Doctor." "There's always a preceding thought. What was it this morning? Right after I woke up, at noon. Take me back to that moment. He reflected. I was angry about my girlfriend leaving me. That might be why you smoke. It's a coping mechanism. That makes sense. We discussed new strategies before concluding the session. After he left, I considered which of my patients had slashed my tires.